call the meeting to order. This will be the regular 2 o'clock meeting of the council chamber, of the city council. And I appreciate you taking your time off to be here and help us govern the city. Thank you very much. We'll start with an invocation from Commissioner Call.
Shall we pray? Father, we gather to do your work in your place with your people. To do that, we would ask for grace, for mercies, and for wisdom, for clean hearts that have been touched by you, that will fill us with compassion for those that see things differently. Our prayer is that all that happens here will make life better for somebody and not hurt anyone. Hear our prayer. In the name of Christ. Amen.
Now, if you would stand with me for
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It comes now time to approve the agenda. I'd like to ask the commissioners to consider a couple of amendments under new business. One concerns a site visit by potential developers to be held on Tuesday the 9th. The second has to do with the redevelopment commission and what should be done with it since the last week's meeting in which we did away with it. We got to figure out whether we want to be the redevelopment commission's commissioners or whether we just let it go away. So those are the two things I'd like to get into the new business. We'll have a motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. So those two items will be added under new business. The next item under review business is the consent agenda.
I'd like to have one item removed from the consent agenda for discussion, and that is 9B.
As a consent item?
No, it's being taken from the consent item for discussion. So that would not be voted or approved at this time.
I think what you're saying is if you want it off the consent, you want it on as a regular item for discussion. So instead of being approved as part of the consent, you would approve it separately after the discussion. No, just as part of the regular.
Where it falls.
Yes, where it falls. It just is not included in the consent, but it's still on the agenda.
Is it still good as 9C?
Yes, sir. Well, it still would be 9B. It would still be on the agenda, but just not approved as part of the consent agenda.
So Mayor, would just be discussed in its regular place on the agenda.
Right.
So as you move through, we will hit that and discussion.
One we could incorrect and prove somebody correct. The consent agenda is comprised of matters of routine business that do not require discussion by the board. Items included on this agenda are indicated with an asterisk and will be considered with one motion by the board. If the board member wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda, that item will be considered in its listed place on the agenda. So So, reading those, notes that have to do with asterisk, we have, the approval of minutes. We have 9A, tax collector's report. Is it necessary to read all that? One says yes, one says no. You want to read it?
Oh, that's your call, sir. Yes.
Well, the tax collector has submitted a report on unpaid 2015 taxes, which constitute a lien on real property as required by General Statute 150-369A. This statute also provides for the advertisement of such taxes. Resolution 2016-051 authorizes the tax collector to advertise the unpaid taxes and also attach to the report of unpaid taxes as required. Nine B, the board to consider a resolution authorizing staff to make application for NCDEQ, Division of Environmental Assistance Reimbursement Grant for downtown recycling containers. And basically what we're asking here is the ability to get a grant that pays part of some downtown collection devices.
And that was the item that was removed from the consent. The only thing you're considering on the consent at this time is the approval of the minutes in 9A that you read. You'll need a motion and second on that, and then we'll pick up item B in its place as we go through the agenda.
I would move that we accept number 3 and number 9A as consent agenda items.
Second that motion.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, you talk away. See if the consent or it isn't, I don't. Okay. The next item on the agenda concerns a public hearing. There's no hearing scheduled at this time. Item 6 is a public forum. This is the time for citizens to come forward and speak to the board. If anyone wants to speak, please come to the platform, state your name, address, and if you reside within the city limits. So we're now open for a public forum.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Gene Moore, with I-3 Clark Creek Drive, and I am a citizen of the city. I know y'all hear a lot of complaining up here. I just want to today to publicly thank you on behalf of the property owner on the south of Franklin Creek for your decision regarding the redevelopment. We appreciate it. Appreciate your support of the property owner. And we also want to publicly thank the planning board for being expedient, having the wisdom and foresight to see ahead of this thing and to get this development moving in the right way. I think it speaks well of the commissioners, I think it speaks well of the planning board, and we just want to say thank you very much.
Others? All right, we'll move to the certificates and awards. And we'd like to have Roscoe Hines and his supervisor, Tony Parks, to come up to the podium. Roscoe, I understand that you do a great job for the city, not only in the actual physical work you do, but in the conversations that you have with our visitors, and we appreciate your attitude and how you do things. Roscoe is an employee of Lifespan, who provides cleaning and maintenance at the downtown West area. He is well-known face at the downtown West area facility. He's ready to help in any way he can and always carries a smile on his face. There it is. He's a huge asset to Lifespan in the city of Mount Airy, and we appreciate all he does to keep the downtown West area clean and running smoothly. Roscoe, it's my pleasure to recognize you for the hard work you do every day. Thank you very much. The next item is a special presentation recognizing that the month of February is Black History Month, and we would like to recognize Ms. Carol Reynolds, if she would come to the podium. Did you bring anybody else with you?
Yellow Phone, Cheryl Scott, Dave Carter, Ella Thompson, and Suzanne.
February is Black History Month. It's an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing their central role in U.S. history. Since 1976, every U.S. president has officially designated the month of February as Black History Month and endorsed a specific theme. The theme for 2016 is Hallowed Ground, Sites of African American Memories. And we have a proclamation in here. That says, whereas the month of February, Black History Month, will be observed in our city, state, and nation as a way of recognizing Americans that have played significant roles in the history of economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development while working tirelessly to maintain and promote their culture and history. And whereas, as a result of determination, hard work, and perseverance, African Americans have made valuable and lasting contributions to communities, achieving exceptional success in all aspects of society, including business, education, politics, science, and the arts. And whereas in 1976, Black History Month was formally adopted to honor and affirm the importance of Black history throughout our American experience, and serves to promote cultural achievement, ethnic pride, and self-esteem by celebrating the lives and achievements of great African Americans. And whereas Black History Month is a time for all Americans to remember the stories and teachings of those who helped build our nation, took the stance against prejudice to build lives of dignity and opportunity, advance the cause of civil rights, and strengthen families and communities. Now therefore, I, David L. Rowe, Mayor of the City of Mount Airy, do hereby proclaim 2016 as Black History Month in the City of Mount Airy, and urge all citizens to join me in paying tribute to African Americans and encourage appropriate programs and activities that honor the significant contribution African Americans have made to our city, state, and nation. In witness hereof, I have hereto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Mount Airy to be affixed on this 4th day of February 2016. Signed, David L. Rowe, Mayor, City of Mount Airy. The care to say a word?
On behalf of the NAACP and all the citizens, African American citizens, all citizens in Mount Airy, Surrey County, we'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Rowe. He's my boss. He was real good. And I really, really appreciate all of you that I know. I know who I don't know. God bless you.
This spirit caught my voice. That's how we're friends, I hope. All right, we'd like to recognize now Jeff Bull.
This is a presentation on snow removal in the city of Mount Airy. I've been thinking about doing this for about a year at least, just so everybody knows how we go about it. And it just so happened that it landed right after the snow. We finally got it all together. So it's not specifically about the last snow, it's just about how we go about addressing snow removal. Before I get started, I'll recognize Larry Combs, raise your hand, Rick Collins, and Dennis Hodges. Three of the main guys in snow removal for the city, and they're the ones that really make it happen out there. So we'll get started.
I think these gentlemen should stand and have a round of applause. Before you get started, I would like to go on record as saying thank you for the job that you have done, not only for this snow, but many others, but I know this one was a challenge, so thank you so much.
I told Ricky on the way in I was going to make him speak, and Brett not going to come to the door, so I'm not going to do that. Anyway, start off, as I said, this snow removal is that's a cap Katrina installed and bought for me. I really appreciate that. But I just want to tell you how we go about it and what our responsibilities are. And it'll take a little time here, so it won't be more than an hour and a half or so. We have 70 miles of streets in the city. We have 15 parking lots, we have curb ramps, cemetery streets, we have water and wastewater treatment plant, driveways to keep clear, pump station driveways, recycle transfer station. And then there's also 30 miles of DOT streets, and sometimes that gets confused because even though they come through the city, there's still a responsibility under the ownership of the DOT. That could be anything that's named, that has a number. 103, 104, 89, 52, 601, and also other streets that start in town and go out of town. Portion of Linville Road, Parker Road, streets like that. Arlington Street. That doesn't mean we don't work on them, but if we go by them, we'll help. We don't stuff on the blade and just say, oh, that's the state's responsibility. But it is in the end theirs, but we do help when we can, when we need to. Cardinal Street's another one. Just want to know we have a snow plan. It's not like we all just show up the day of and say, you go here, you go there, and we'll see you in 8 hours or 12 hours. We have a plan. It's a written document. It's a living document. It gets revised regularly. It was first prepared November of 2004, and since that time it's been updated a dozen times. And not just for contact information, which happens a lot with us. Everybody's cell phone numbers seems to change quite a bit. Just all we realize we need to do something a little better, or we got a better idea, and we implement it. We get it written down. This 20-page document, it's got 2 maps in it. And that's just not to pass the whole thing around and go through it all, just give you a table of contents. There's the narrative, the snow removal plan that actually states how we go about things. There are the list of duties that we have for every position that we have. There's maps, there's the contingency plans in case we can't get food, we can't get fuel, you just never know. And we have a work schedule for them, and we have contact information. And I'll get into all of these here in just a minute. Duties, those are the different roles, the different positions that we have during any snow event, starting from the supervisor to the garage personnel, and then all the operators in between that really make it happen. Assistant supervisor, we have somebody looking after safety, and then various operators, I mean, snow plows being the ones that people see the most. Just to give you an example, this is an example of the duties of the assistant supervisor, and maybe we ought to have a checklist, a box for checking on the side, because that's the way we look at it. This is what they're supposed to do. Assistants, and I just pick these out randomly, or just as representative. He keeps a record of the time worked. He takes the phone calls. This person provides each snowplow operator with a map, which I'll show you here in a minute. They keep up with the amount of salt that is available, and they plan to provide any food that we do, that we're going to provide, and make sure the snacks are available. And then the last one there is just we want to make sure our skid steer is available and not stuck in the transfer station where we can't get to it. Snowplow operator, there's a longer list there. You see, and not to go over every one, but you see at the beginning they check in, and at the end they check out. And they pick up their tools at the beginning, the toolbox that they need to keep the chains functioning on the go, and then they make sure they return. And then there's some information about how to use the radio, and how to be safe, and how to treat the citizens. Patch and broken chains. And you see that list there. We've got a list of streets right there. And keep in mind, every operator is getting this. Don't go on those streets. If you're in these areas, don't get on these streets, are too dangerous. Basically, just a couple examples there of the duties that we hand out to every person who's working in the event. Those are the assets we have. We have the plows, the dump trucks with the salt body on them, the backhoes, the skid steer loader, the tractor, and the motor grader. Other assets and personnel, we have 43 employees that we can assign to this at any time. That's the contact information there that for each one of their personal cell phones. There's a worksheet. That's how we kind of keep up with who's doing what. We got the supervisor, assistant supervisor, safety person. We've got the 5 plow areas that we see in people's doing. I'll show you that. I'll show you who's on the truck, who's driving the spreader, who's on the backhoe, who's on the skid steer, and the tractor, and who's in the garage. And that's just how I keep up with it as a supervisor. To know who's where, know who to contact, and make sure that things are running the way they need to be. We're not losing track of anything. So every snow is different. It comes in warmer and then turns to snow. Or it's already cold. It comes in as ice. Sometimes it ices and snows and ices. Sometimes it stays warm for a while. So it warms up immediately afterwards. Sometimes it stays cold. But we have the following we usually use. Brine is a possibility. Brine is a saline solution that's applied before the event starts. It takes us about 2 days to get it done. If the storm starts as rain, you wasted your time. It just washes it off. So we have to kind of watch and know the future. We guess the future based on our forecast we see before we decide to implement brine. And honestly, our experience with brine is it's no cure-all. Everybody thinks you get the brine down, you're okay. But what we've seen from brine, for the right kind of snow, an inch or two, and starting cold, it probably helps. And get much beyond that, we've not seen it make a whole lot of difference. And I think the guys are backing up on that. Okay. Good, thank you. There's an example of a salt brine truck. Again, it's just spraying the brine out on the streets. Again, it's a good thing to do, but it can help. If we get a chance and it looks like it works right, it's going to be the right source of work we'll use it. Then you get into applying salt. All salt does is a chemical reaction. It lowers the freezing point of the water. So then instead of freezing at 32 degrees, it will freeze 8, 10, 12, 15 degrees less than that. The colder you get, the less likely it is to help. And there's some other factors in there, humidity and things because I don't really know about that well, but I know you get much below about 18 degrees, 28 degrees, you can forget it. And that's what we would apply sand for traction. We don't have enough salt. Nobody keeps enough salt to apply to every foot of every street they have. People think, why haven't we salted the streets? Well, you know, we apply it to the areas we know there are problems, bridges. But we don't have or keep enough salt to apply to every foot of the street. We use about 60 tons for the most recent storm. That tells you something. We keep 100 tons on hand. Salt is a different commodity too. It's sometimes difficult to even get. I mean, it's amazing how it works. We have a salt route map that the driver follows. There's a salt truck ready to roll. Let's put it up there. There's the salt map, salt route map. Those are numbers, locations on the right-hand side. We know there are problems, and there is a route for them. And the ones in bold are more critical. And we might do the full route, and we might just hit the major places, depending on what we think how we think the storm's working. Sorry, that's not any more legible than it is. Then we get into plow. We don't begin plowing until the snow reaches about a depth of 2 inches. And the reason is we set the plow heights to about 3/4 of an inch above the pavement. They're not down on the ground. And y'all feel free to interrupt me anytime when we get this. We'll make this interactive as possible. And from there, we count on warmth of the asphalt and traffic to help break it loose. The reason we do that is we have a lot of structures on city streets. Manholes, water meter boxes, and if we drag along the pavement and we hit one of those, it's almost like a head-on collision. I'm sure Dennis and Ricky can tell you about times where they've accidentally caught structures. That's different from a lot of DOT streets. You know, 52, there's no structures in 50 in height of the bypass. You know, they can drag along the road a little better. David probably knows more about that than I do. I've done some of that. That's why we don't go all the way down, basically, because of that damage issue. There's the plow map. That's the overall view. We have 5 areas. You can see starting from the south and working north. And we assign the driver to each area 5 different trucks. And we give them a blown-up map. Looks about like that. That's just an example there. Area 2. Here's your streets. See which ones are city, which ones are DOT. Take care of them. From that point, off they go. We don't have GPS on the truck. We don't have cameras on the trucks. But we count on the drivers, know what they need to do, and they take care of it. There's a good shot from before the event of how the wheels are set and how the blade's set. You can see that gap there. It doesn't mean it's always going to work that way because let's face it, streets aren't uniform. First of all, they have the crowns in them, and sometimes there's imperfections. But that's generally what you're looking at. For the event, we do about 15 minutes worth of training. That's a couple of days before the beginning of the season. We have all the guys in, and that's John Snow, our garage supervisor, there in the middle, talking to them about how to fix chains, what to look for on the to set the blade down, all the things they haven't done. We haven't done in a year. Sometimes we have we always have on the goes. Early events, snowplow repairs. There's Dennis in the back there. He's driving the truck. Now he's holding the light so that John can fix the pump that lifts the blade up and down. Just things like that happen. A lot of times we have snow chain running, especially as it gets less and less snow. They're more likely to break when they're on harder streets, when they're on asphalt instead of on ice. Those guys are trying to get ahead by, hey, while we got a little time here, let's go ahead and fix the chain now And so we can just slip it on to the next one when it comes in and needs repair. Sometimes they repair it on the fly, though. That's why they take their toolbox, so they go repair them while they're out on the job. Next thing we can use would be a tractor. That's for some of those steep areas like that on that list we talked about. It functions a lot better, it handles steep areas, and then the driver, it can get right down to the ground, because the driver can see the structures since the plow is behind him. We also use the motor grader. That's where we go back and hit the business, industrial areas, even downtown, sometimes really tough areas. You can handle things, it just tends to be slow. Parking lots are handled by the backhoes and skid steer. Usually the utilities maintenance company does those. If we're not having water and sewer problems, thank goodness we did this last time. That's police station, fire station, all the publicly owned lots, all the downtown parking lots, all the curb ramps, and all the little areas around, typically downtown. And then, of course, there's the handheld equipment that Airy uses. In addition to the shovel, you can see there, they've got a snow blower, using a propane torch, whatever it takes to get those walkways clear. We have kind of an operations center there in our conference room. You see we have the TV on, and that's got the weather. We've got the radar show. We're always watching the radar. I'm kind of compulsive about that. We usually have at least one person in there who's on the radio or on the telephone, dealing with the call-ins or calls from the police department, or checking in with the guys to make sure they're okay. There's just a shot of Green Hill Road being plowed in this last event. You can see how it's rolled up on the edges, but it's still wide in the middle. And that's one, Green Hill Road is actually a state road. But, you know, Dennis was going from one city street to the next, so he wasn't going to just skip it. We try to help where we can. Plantation Place, there you see the truck. It's just scraped one side and gone through. Of course, it's a little bit uneven, but it didn't get all the way down to the ground everywhere. Things happen. There's a plow that's stuck at night over on that's Hale Street. Tractor's there to pull them out. That's how we have damage to citizens' property sometimes when you start slipping and sliding around. You know, they're doing the best they can day and night. We are on Cynthia Drive. That's probably a day after everything's been plowed. And you've got the road, it's been rode up on the side, so it's been plowed down. Almost where you can see a little black there, a little pavement, but we still have to have some help. Old Springs Road, same way. I think I failed to say before that we work 12-hour shifts. Cemetery. We're having a funeral this past Sunday, Jack Leach's. We've got to get those streets ready. Once in a while, the guys get a break, they'll come in, have a meal. You never know what's going to be open. You're working 12-hour shifts, so you've got to have some fuel for them. We have a shift change meeting. This is where we do 12-hour shifts. And what we do is take about 10 to 15 minutes between each shift and just talk about, make sure the guys who are doing truck one, who didn't just come off truck one, tell the guys that are coming on the truck one how you did, where you got to, how far along things got. And then, of course, we're all talking about were there any safety issues, was there anything else we need to communicate before we go back out and hit the road. This is an interesting one, sort of Main Street. We've changed our tactics in the last few years. The problems with downtown is there's nowhere to put the snow. You put it in the parking area, and that's no good for the customers. We put it in the center there one time. I don't think that helped too much. So what we've got to do is where we salt it pretty heavily, and we advise our people on the plow trucks, hey, when you're coming in for whatever reason, drive down Main Street with your plow up, just run over it, trying to mash it down and melt it that way. And that's worked fairly well for several snows. And just so we don't forget, water and sewer issues, which Those are the guys doing the, scraping the parking lots. They don't ever end. The most recent event was booking it with water leaks. That was just below the water tank on Robert Street. Those are the guys down in the water on a 25-degree day. They were down on their hands and knees in the water. Same thing happened after the event on West Elm and North Main. You may have seen that road closed signs there. That's our approach. Ready to take any questions.
What kind of damage do your vehicles suffer from all the salt?
Well, we try to wash it off pretty good, cleaned up. Once it gets over, I'll get out there and clean it up the best I can. Larry, you answer that any better?
We cleaned up the last of them today. It's a process, takes a few days.
Yeah. See much long-term damage?
No, not in this case.
Have you got a picture of a skid steer?
I do.
Never heard of that.
I did not have that picture up there, did I? It's just a little.
It was in the parking lot. It was in the parking lot. Was cleaning the parking lot, sir?
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I commend you for keeping Main Street really nice. I really do. But when I parked on the left-hand side, the snow was piled up, like you showed in the picture. Some of the shop owners, a couple of them had made it back. But I had to have somebody help me out of the car so I could, do whatever I needed to do that day. But the street was fine, except all that snow was on the curb. And you couldn't get out. It was so high, it was hard to step over. When somebody came by and helped you, it's like you fall. I don't know how you could address that, but the street was fine.
Yeah, the parking areas are always a problem because they don't meet the traffic. If people ran over the snow in the parking spaces like they do out in the
Well, had I parked on the right-hand side of the road, I would have been fine.
yeah.
When I parked on the left. Something to think about.
This time.
My name is Evelyn Thompson, and I live on Parker Road. And in the past, I have addressed the commissioners about the problem and the confusion of snow removal on Parker Road, and the upper part of it particularly. And I just want to commend you, Mr. Boyle. I'm still confused as to who takes care of that road, DOT or the city. Either you've influenced DOT in a positive way or you cleared our streets. I don't know which it was. But we've had property damage, it was a mess before. Now, I just want to commend you and the crew for just smoothly taking care of the road, respecting the property. We were very pleased. Thank you so much.
And I say thank you for Dennis Hodges because he's
Yes,
the guy
thank
that
you.
always put on Area 5 because it's one of the toughest ones. So we give it to our best operator.
Evelyn, let me mention to you, when I knew he was doing this today, I thought about you folks. And I had hoped that all that had been resolved, and I asked him to get a letter back. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So how many total man hours were spent in snow removal during the past storm? A lot.
A lot.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, and the amount of overtime you get really depends on when the storm comes in and how long it lasts. But we had basically, if you get into the next week where we're still working on it, it's still coming up, so we're very real issues. I don't have it. I'm sorry, I don't have a little bit more. But it's 12-hour shifts.
What are you predicting for the next week?
No more snow. I always try to be as positive as I can. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda concerns old business. The 2015 annual fire department report was given out for the last meeting. Are there any questions for Chief Poindexter about the annual report? If not, please record in the minutes that the report has been presented and accepted by the board. Next item on the agenda is new business. This is where 9C comes in. The board is to consider a resolution authorizing the staff to make application for the NCDEQ Division of Environmental Assistance reimbursement grant for downtown recycling containers. Any discussion on this?
David, I did ask for this for discussion, and I talked to Jeff just a little bit before the meeting, and if Jeff could come up and answer some of those questions out loud, I would appreciate it. One of my concerns, of course, I'm all for recycling, but I was concerned about the price of it. So I've talked to Jeff, found out that you have to have a grant in by when? A week from Friday. So some of my questions may not be pertinent this time, but I was going to ask if there are less expensive recycling containers. And I understand that we could get the same type of containers we have now for a little bit less. Is there any way you can go ahead with the grant without knowing exactly what you're going to be purchasing?
Can I just start from the beginning a little bit?
Please do.
Okay. How this came about was, we've been talking since December for the Recycling Advisory Committee, which Jennifer Nestor's here, and Emily Jones, maybe or not. Anyway, they've been wanting to promote their mission, as directed by you, is to promote recycling within the city of Mount Airy. So we have gone after grants, which are usually pretty good ones. Over the years, for various things, including the transfer station upgrade, the carts, and the containers for Leaf Community Center and the Greenway. So this year, we had the people from DEQ came to our December meetings to talk to us, which was the first one after the new board meeting, to talk to us about the grant, what we could do, and what they wanted to push this year was downtown recycling. That was Recycling Advisory Committee's advice. So the guy from Rob Taylor from DEQ came, and Heather Cashwell. And of course, they're great people to deal with, and they helped us get this program launched in the first place. And so they mentioned the grant, and so the board at the Recycling Advisory Committee board at the January meeting said, we'd like to push downtown. So we have containers out there. Can you find some containers that will go with that or match with that, and see what the downtown group thinks about it, because obviously it affects them quite a bit. That was Monday night. So that was then Tuesday morning, less than 12 hours later, I went to the MAD meeting and showed them some options for recycling for light recycling containers that could kind of go with what they already had downtown. Well, we couldn't find anything to really match or work with what they already had, that would match it exactly because, see, if you can see that container up there, a little bit of detail here, but see that blue top? The state basically is only going to fund it or help fund if you have a vertical opening. So it has to go sideways. Because from their research, their experience with places all over the state, if you just have a regular open top like that, you get all kinds of contamination, which is the worst thing you can have with recycling. All right, so then the containers that are downtown all have the vertical, or they don't flare out like that does. I don't know. So there's no really good room to get your hand in there to get a bottle or anything else recycled in there. So we showed the MAD group lots of options, and they decided they would like what we call doubles, which you see a lot better now than you can on the copies you have there. But it would be this container with that blue top, if that makes any sense. So there's kind of what the dome looks like, and it sits in that structure.
Jeff, will they both be for recycling?
No, actually what this would also do is the right side, which is the blue dome, is recycling. The left side, which is the right side, which would be a blue dome that looks like that. I'm sorry I don't have a picture that really shows it, but this is all I can get from manufacturing. That blue dome sits where that red is, and that's for recycling. This looks just like it does on there, and it's for regular trash. And that we like adding that dome to it, to the recycling, to the trash container for two reasons. One is rainwater, to help keep the rainwater out of the trash, whereas right now it's just an opening. Anything can get in. The other is we find people want to stuff their household trash down into these containers, and we think would make it tougher for them to do that. So how the grant works is in this case, it's a 50-50 match. And going to, when I went to the MAD, they said, okay, we like these kind of containers, and we would propose to put up 8,000 MSD funds with the city putting up out of 9 MSD funds another 8,000. So it'd be $16,000. 8 MSD, 8 non-MSD.
And that's for how many, 12?
That would give us about 12 containers, because as you see, the price there is $20 through $28.
And who determines where they're going to be placed?
Well, Russell Carroll, who's here, the sanitation supervisor, he and I guess Lizzie with the downtown group, we talked to all our guys that pick up downtown and talk about where the heavy stuff is. So basically, we had talked about so far is kind of spacing around it. Those yellow dots are the metal trash cans, and the red dots are more the concrete ones. That's what we have now. That's what we have in the yellow dots now, mainly on Main. Those are older concrete, and so put on some of the side streets. So I would think they would mostly be on Main. We might put one or two down on Market, or maybe one in the parking lot. I haven't really got there.
Is there any companies that are less expensive with the same good looks as this, or I'm just watching dollars so that you could get more possibly rather than a dozen. And the recycling people that we work with our city, do they have any access to people getting less expensive?
We did look at the, fiberglass containers, plastic containers and the heavy plastic ones, and, they're just not very durable. Didn't really like the look of them for downtown. As far as metal, Russell, you checked other places, I think.
They're all basically same price.
In that 1,000 to 1,200 for singles, and about double that for the doubles. So,
These things are powder coated, so they'll last a lot longer. If you got one just painted, it wouldn't. It
So how
probably
do-
last 5 years.
So you just take the lid off and lift out the trash?
Them actually have doors on the back. You just unlatch the door, open it up, pull the can out, dump it, stick it back.
sorry, that's sort of a sideways view there, what it would look like. If you can picture the blue dome being on there instead of that ribbon.
Trash would be just like that, but the blue dome would be with the ribbon and that.
Right.
Certainly gonna have, inserts in them, trash bags or anything to make it easier for you to remove.
It'll be a, like a 30-gallon trash can on each side,
You just-
Plastic.
plastic trash can.
Same way we do now, it'll just be two of them.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Can I just add this, that I had the same concerns as you did about the cost and only getting 12, but I feel the same, I feel that investing in this, it will last, because really, any of the recyclable trash cans, they're not cheap. They really aren't, because I've gone around with cameras in different cities and have taken them to our meetings, and I said, I love this, I think it's a great idea. And there's some that I thought would be cheaper, and they're way more expensive than this. And this really goes with the look of downtown and still getting the effect of recycling. And I really feel like that our town needs to have recycling downtown. I think we're at that stage now that, we really need to have that, especially as many people as we have, downtown. And I think this is a great way to address that and look nice at the same time.
Just say there's no guarantee of getting the grant, we're just gonna apply. I mean, we always feel good about it. We have a good track record, and it would be in next year's budget starting July.
Jeff, if the grant's not approved, do we just buy 6, or what are we gonna do
Well, yes, I mean, we could, or they might say, hey, this was a really competitive year, come back next year. Or massage your application this way and that way. That'll make it, you might have a much better chance. We just have to see that whole.
It's looking like it's gonna cost $8 grand from the city, whether we get the grant or not. That's the part that's a little confusing to me.
Well, you don't have to do anything. We don't have to apply. I mean, this is an addition to the services we're providing now.
Yeah.
Really wouldn't.
I'm just trying to sort out the money that's towards what advantage the grant has.
Yeah, but it's half the cost. I mean, it's 50% match. And the way they normally do it is they don't normally pay for trash. Anything to do with trash, they pay for recycling. So the way they look at these is you're paying for the trash side, they're paying for the recycling side. Normally the grants, if you recall, have been on 1,656. We pay 1,656. But that's when it's all being recycled. Sorry, it's a little complicated.
So back to John's question. If we did get the grant, and we bought 6 with matching, and then the next year we say, okay, we're gonna try another grant, so we can add to that. Is that a possibility?
It's always a possibility to try again, but I mean, if we don't get the grant, we may not, like I said, depending on how they respond and what they tell us, we may not want to go out and buy any at this point. I mean, I feel positive about the grant. I've gotten every one I've applied for so far. But, I just wanted to put that caveat in, it's not guaranteed. like I said, we can just keep on cruising on curbside only for another year. Or we take a look at it, and say, maybe we should get a few just to see how it goes. So we can have that decision at that time.
If I could,
I'll ask one more question and I'll be quiet. Lots of these things I don't know on a daily basis, but since we're talking about it, could we consider doing 2 recycling tops in the double and using the trash cans that we have now? Are they adequate, or are we gonna move some of those somewhere else, or we're just gonna add to? Just tell us about how that's gonna work.
Well, as far as putting 2, and you say like putting 2 in one, that's something that the state will not fund because the research has found that it's better if you twin trash and recycling. If you're standing there, and there's a container there, you're gonna throw it in it rather than walk 30 feet down where the other one is. So they want to give you the option handy, right where you are. So, first of all, that's why you see everything grouped together. As far as what we would do with the others, the plan is to spread them out. I don't envision these 12 adding to the 23 that are already on Main and having 35. It wouldn't be like that. It would be more like we take out, or we spread out the 23 into the other side streets. Maybe you just get rid of some. So,
well, Commissioner Colley did touch on one thing I wanted to mention, and that was what would happen to the existing cans, and we addressed that. The main thing I'd like to say is, I know when you're looking at this amount of money for trash cans and recycling cans, it is expensive. But at the same time, I think if we could move forward with the grant, and we can go ahead and enhance recycling in downtown, and dress up, may not be the best word to use, but at the same time, have those containers as attractive as we can, and then encourage people to utilize the cans properly. You've got trash for one, you've got recycling for the other, and keep those clean. I know I hear a lot of comments, even with the existing containers we have, having to clean those up just because of the things that happen as you put trash in, and I think we should continue to do that. But I would like to see the board move forward with allowing us to submit for the grant and then be able to utilize the MSD monies that Matt said they would contribute, and then the general fund monies and grant dollars as well. I think it would be an enhancement to what we're currently doing.
Well, we're moving to approve that, unless we're doing discussion.
There's been a motion, there's been a second, we've had some discussion, there's been more discussion. All in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes. Item C, board to consider resolution authorizing acquisition of property owned by Millennium Education Foundation Incorporated. Resolution number 2016-053. Millennium Education Foundation owns a small parcel of property at the corner of Pine and Central Street. The city would like to purchase this parcel to help with providing additional parking and intersection improvements. The Millennium has agreed to sell the property for $5,000. This will allow the city to plan for extra parking. Do I hear a motion and a second?
Motion made to accept this property. I second it.
There's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes. Item B, the board has discussed the appointment. And I recognize Steve Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank you and the board both for revisiting this agenda item, and I did think it needed further discussion. I just wanted to make absolutely certain that everyone knew the implication of the board's vote at the last meeting about Man Airy's representative to the Piedmont Triad Regional Council and the Rural Planning Organization's Transportation Advisory Committee. I have been the representative to both of these two groups for the past 6 years. I have served on the executive committee as the Piedmont Triad Regional Council Treasurer and Secretary over the last 3 years. For 2016, I already had been elected as the Piedmont Triad Regional Council Vice Chair, and it would be logical to assume that I would be in line to be the chair next year. I have been in the position that they have been calling me when grants become available to ask if Man Airy would like to apply. The last one was the $2 million water and sewer upgrade grants for which we applied, and unfortunately we weren't awarded the grants in the first round. We just got notification of that a week or two ago. But the Piedmont Triad Regional Council continues to work with us to modify the grant to increase the likelihood of us being awarded the grant in the next round. In addition, I have been elected as the Piedmont Triad Regional Council's representative to the State Forum of Council of Governments, which meets several times a year in Raleigh. Evidently, the elected officials who represent 12 counties and over 60 other municipalities think my knowledge and dedication to helping Man Airy and all of us in this region are important enough to have elected me to these leadership roles. As I said at the last meeting, I think it is in the best interest of Man Airy for me to continue in these positions. Commissioner Brown was the only other commissioner who agreed. If this mayor and board of commissioners think it is important for Man Airy to lose its knowledge and influence to help us locally and want to appoint another representative as the decision has been made, then so be it. But however, if that is your desire, I would ask that the mayor and the board publicly explain to me why you think it is in Man Airy's best interest for me not to consider serving on these two boards.
Mayor, would you like for me to speak before you seem to be ready to?
Let me think just a minute here before. I don't think that the vote was a repudiation, Steve, of you in any kind of way. I don't know that many of us recognize the role that you played there and the important position that you played. And had we known how that might have changed some of our voting. However, we have voted, and unless, of course, I think we've learned that anything we've done we can undo, but I would open the floor for a discussion of what the next move should be in this particular case. So, the board's open.
Well, since I was the one that had been chosen, I came very close to saying at that meeting, Steve, you go ahead and have it. But let me share something with everyone. I got an email from Jerry Taylor, and it sounded like much of what you just said, so I don't know who wrote which part, but which it doesn't matter. I think this is part of our problem today, is that we are finding fault with everything. But one question, and I assume these are questions that needed to be answered, or there would have been a question mark at the end of them. Jerry asked me, why do you think that you were more qualified than Commissioner Yoakley to serve on the PTRG? I have never indicated that I was better qualified than anybody. Steve, you learned when you first got on what you were supposed to do. You've done an outstanding job climbing to the top, and I wouldn't want to hold you back from that. I can learn just as much as you have learned. And I feel like that I can do as good a job. I may not be in the status that you are right now, but I believe that I could represent the people just as well as you have. That's why we're all selected and voted on to represent the people of this town. The second question was, how is your appointment, which is word for word almost from what you said, how is your appointment in the best interest of the city of Mount Airy? My appointment would be just as important as your appointment, Steve, because we both would be serving the people of this Mount Airy. And I'm going to say something now that I was going to say until the very end. I'm going to relinquish this to you. If the board would like to change it over, I would like to hear from you each time you go to these meetings. Let us know what's going on. But I will relinquish this under one condition, and it's going to take the citizens to make it happen. There has been nothing but hatefulness and ugliness on Facebook during, before, and after this election. It's been like a bunch of children arguing about who's on the board, who's not on the board, how we should and should not treat one another. That is not the way for unity in this town. And it's going to take your friends and our friends to stop it off of Facebook. If we cannot hold hands and work together in this town, it doesn't matter who's on this board, and it doesn't matter who has that position, Steve. But it's going to have to take some unity. And everybody that wants this city to be united, you've got to stop ridiculing one another. Get off of Facebook. It's the devil's playground, and it's doing more harm than it's doing good. If I were coming to this town and I were to see, and you want developers to come in, developers are not going to come in if they start seeing this. People are not going to move in this town if they think that there's already anger. They've got that in the towns they're in. That's why they're trying to move away from them. And I'm going to ask each one of you that's on Facebook that it's become your ritual to ridicule and to talk against anybody that you can that's trying to serve this city to please stop. You know, you're accomplishing nothing. Absolutely nothing. This town is my town and your town. I want it to be the best that it can possibly be. We've got great city workers. We've got great staff. I think we've got a pretty doggone good board. And the city of this town, you people elected us. And those of you that didn't win the prize, you can still be the best citizens that we've got. But the best citizens are not going to be people that are slapping each other around. So if you want Steve to do the best job he can possibly do, please stop talking against everybody on this board. And with that being said, if I stepped on toes, so be it. Maybe that's what we needed. But this town needs to get back to love and kindness and quit lashing out. And whenever people walk down the street, be glad that you can say, welcome to Mount Airy. This is a good town to live in, and I'm going to represent that person. So Steve, rest of the board, if you want for me to, however it's done, decline this, I'll be happy to. I would love to be able to go with you to the meetings if you're selected, Steve. More than happy to. So it's going to be up to the board at this point.
I think procedurally, the seat has been filled, so unless there's a vacancy, and by that I mean your resignation of that seat, I don't believe there's a vacancy for the board to do anything about. The board can't unseat you, I don't think.
I resign. How about that? Now that it's an empty spot, and we can go from there. If I need to resign from the board, I'm not doing that. But I will resign from that.
If that's your considered decision, then I guess there's a vacancy in that seat.
Well, I'm going to leave it up to the people of this town to determine what develops from here. Because I didn't call just for myself talking. I can do that on my own. But I'll be here. And if it's going to take me to continue on this, I'm all for it. All for it. So I resign. We've got an open seat.
I guess that's why the mayor gets the big bucks. Sort of unprecedented in my short political career. To have a situation like this that comes up. I am a little perplexed, I guess you could say, a little concerned about the potential for a rift between the 5 or 6 of us that could develop, I hope would not develop. I think Steve has done a good job, obviously, from his recognition by that group for the role that he has played there. And I have no doubt that he would be a good representative. But it's a difficult place that I think we find ourselves where we did something that was duly constituted, I think. And now, with the exception of the resignation, surely would be something that I don't think we could back off on. But since Shirley has publicly stated that she resigned, then it's be up to the commissioners to take the appropriate action that they would like to take. So, having dodged the bullet, so to speak, the mayor would pass for discussion on to the commissioners of the situation in which we find ourselves.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that Steve take this position that he has had for 6 years, and I will support him 100%.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, Steve, I guess congratulations. I'm sure if you continue to do a good job, you hear.
Thank you. I didn't bring this up because of personal reasons. I brought it up because I think it's in the best interest of the citizens in that area. So, thank you very much for reconsidering.
And that's the reason I voted for you, okay?
Well, under other business, I would like to discuss a site visit to be held this coming Tuesday, 10 o'clock here at the municipal building. Will be our starting point. We're going to have the 2 potential developers. Barbara, maybe you can go over the other people that are going to be here besides the development.
Okay. What we're looking at is we will have the developers of their team here. We will have Hugh Campbell, Andy Goodall, Martin Collins. There will also be a representative from the School of Government and myself, and Mayor Rowe will be meeting with the developers to talk about the development of the Spencer's property that the city now owns.
It is not a public meeting. It is a meeting to discuss the property, so it's not going to be open to the public. We will be discussing primarily access as well as a look at the buildings. The developers want to get in the buildings to see exactly what they're getting their hands on. And so that will be, we've got a problem with the open meeting law. I wish we could all be there, but we all can't. So I have selected myself to represent the board, and I will have a full report for you after the next opportunity that we have to tell you what went on, how it went, and how the general consensus was of that meeting. The second thing I'd like to discuss is the redevelopment committee. Last meeting we had, we dispensed with the redevelopment committee as such and appointed ourselves as the redevelopment committee. But in thinking about the situation in which we find ourselves, I question the need to have a redevelopment committee at this point, if we were going to be that committee. The property is owned by the city, and I'm not sure that the redevelopment situation fits anymore with the situation in which we find ourselves. So I'd like to open the floor for discussion about whether we want to reconstitute ourselves as a redevelopment committee or whether we want to dispense with the redevelopment committee altogether. Which isn't to say that we should dispense with the work they've done, but to take that work and use it ourselves, whether we be a redevelopment committee or whether we be a city council. So there's a discussion.
Much of what the redevelopment committee has done has progressed us to this point where we can take resources that they have and continue on forward. In all the research that I've done over the last 7 months, at this point, I see no advantage of can or can't do, power or authority, any difference having it versus not. And with that in mind, I would make a motion to go ahead and dissolve it.
Do we need John back in here for the rest of this? Do we need John back in here to hear what he just said?
If you turn your microphone on, it's not operating.
With the past research I've done, as best I can find right now, there is no advantage, power authority-wise, to maintain an RDC. And I would make a motion that we dissolve it completely.
Any other discussion? If there's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Now is the further discussion.
By us dissolving it, this does not stop us from being able to accomplish all the things that we have accomplished by having a redevelopment committee, right?
As far as I know, we're not no authority by no means.
Is that correct?
Based on where we are now with the redevelopment area being confined only to the Spencer property, city-owned property, I think that's right. Most of the powers and duties of the redevelopment commission pertain to property that's not publicly owned. So the advantages of those powers really don't have the application here. The city charter, in matter, is unique in the powers that the city has under the city charter. The city charter allows the city to do with its own city-owned property things that are very similar to it, the powers of the redevelopment commission. So as long as the focus is only on that Spencer's property, it seems to me the city charter, with a few limitations, that the powers are all there that the redevelopment commission would have.
So being able to continue and have things completed by 2020 still is in place. That hasn't changed.
That's up to this board. The work that has to be done, it will still have to be done by this board in order to keep things on that timeline.
And all grants still pertain to as if we had a redevelopment or not. Everything still flows.
Well, I have looked and I have not found any grants that would be exclusive to a redevelopment commission. In other words, a grant that could go to a redevelopment commission from a limited access to that information that I've got, I don't see anything that is only exclusive to the redevelopment commission. The city can apply for the same grant, CDBG and other grants.
Well, I will add one more thing, Steve, to your fixing speakers. But one thing that I would like to add is Shelby did this without a redevelopment committee. Shelby did a great job, and it was a bunch of volunteers that got together to do it. So if they can do it, there's no reason why we can't.
So who's in charge of redevelopment if the redevelopment commission is disbanded completely?
Well, there's no redevelopment per se. I think the next step would be to figure out what's going to happen, to develop a site plan and to work with the developers. And I think now that's going to be the responsibility of the property, this board, to move forward. I think that's what's missing without a redevelopment commission, is that there's not anyone tasked with that duty.
So the decisions will be made by the 5 members of this board.
As the owner of this country's property.
And that's where an agent would come in.
Well, you all have directed me to get assistance from the school government, which I have done, received a proposal, and they will be sitting in on the meeting Tuesday. And then they will be guiding us, as far as working with the developers and gaining the information, putting together, and working with you as well as putting together proposals, not proposals, but contracts and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but let's be clear that the school of government has only been retained as a negotiating agent to work with the developers to get contracts in place. That doesn't include site plan preparation or development or anything else.
Exactly.
We don't have an agent.
We do not have that agent. I think what you is talking about, if you want to create a plan for the city-owned Spencer's property, then we would need to assign that somewhere or hire someone to go out and develop a plan that meets what you want and what the needs of this board and the community is for that property.
What kind of burden is this going to be on the staff of the city? Are you going to have to hire somebody to help with this?
Possibly. I don't know the answer to that. I can certainly talk with Benchmark and see what capabilities they can provide for us. But if you're wanting a plan of just that area, then there's a possibility we would need to contract that out.
Why would we not be able to use the plan that was set aside from the developers that are coming in? Why could we not just go with that?
And that's strictly up to this board.
Okay.
That's a policy decision you guys can make.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't believe there's a specific site plan that has all of the details of the Spencer's property in that plan. There are general parameters, but I don't think there's a specific site plan that you can just adopt.
We still
More work needs to be done.
we should still have a plan come to us, planning to, all
No, sir.
no.
No. I mean, that's just a working document that exists, but it's,
Okay.
I don't think the planning board has any more responsibility to do anything with that. It's based on, if redevelopment goes away, then there's,
I guess that's what I'm
No, it doesn't happen.
document that we have, like I said.
So the planning board's completely out of it now too?
if this motion passes, there's no redevelopment in the city of Atlanta. Under the urban redevelopment.
If we do this, that means the responsibility is on the 5 commissioners and the mayor to get it done. And that means that you can't just sit back and read the board book. You got to go to work. And whatever is two developers to see what they think they have to have, and then see if we need to hire a site contractor to look at the site as a whole, because it's a potential for a great deal of work that has to be done just in what little bit we know about. And no doubt, there'll be more that turns up. And think about utilities aspect of the project, the street aspect of the project, and just there's a great deal of work that has to be done. And I'm sure it will fall on us to make those decisions. So we have to be prepared to do the job. And it's critical. We've been through a lot to get to this point. It's critical that we follow through and keep the ball rolling, keep our eyes on what we're trying to get done. Is there any other discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a point or two that I think that ball has been on our shoulders since the last meeting when we dissolved the redevelopment commission as it was, and replaced it. I don't know whether or not it's the best thing to just be a city board or to be a redevelopment commission. If we keep the urban redevelopment law in play and remain a redevelopment commission, then the headache becomes meetings and minutes and how we're going to deal with that. If we dissolve the redevelopment commission completely and there is no such thing, and we lose the laws that come with the urban redevelopment, then at some point we may lose something else that right now we're not considering. I don't know that we would. As a board working on this particular project, which I will say is one of many projects that face the city of Mount Airy, it seems like to me it would be easier to keep the redevelopment commission for the handing out of specific work to be done. Whereas, when we face this agenda that we face today, all of us come with 20%. And if we keep the redevelopment commission, then there would probably be opportunity for people to say, well, this is something that I really want to spend some attention on, that they might be able to be appointed as a subcommittee or something with someone else and get that done instead of everybody sharing equal responsibility across the board. If there's something other than the meeting that makes it a valid reason to dissolve it, then I have not thought through it well enough yet.
Well, I really think that we'll move much faster working as a board rather than depending on extra redevelopment committee or appointing ourselves as a redevelopment committee. I think we'll move much faster. You don't have to wait 2 weeks or a month to the next meeting, contact other people. We can do it ourselves. That's my thoughts on it.
Other thoughts?
I'll be in favor of retaining the redevelopment commission and, of course, have the board, which has already been decided, to serve as the redevelopment commission. I think it works smooth that way.
I have mixed feelings about this. And I don't want to be flip-flopping. But if we keep the redevelopment commission, we can, the public would still be hearing. We could have, for instance, the redevelopment commission at 6 o'clock, us meet at 6 o'clock on a Thursday evening before our next meeting at 7. I'm not quite ready to give up this just yet until we think it through a little more. This came pretty big. This is a giant step, and I would hate for us to dissolve something that we might regret a month from now, 2 months from now. It's easier to hold on to something and throw it away later than to throw it away now and regret it later. And I'm not totally satisfied with giving it up just yet. And like I said, I've got mixed feelings.
Excellent points to me, and it makes me consider the fact. With or without the RDC, one thing I see resources from some of our RDC members previous to us that can be utilized through their expertise to help. And if they were to offer such help, if we had no RDC, would they be available to provide this help to us? Or does it matter? I mean, if we've got RDC, that we can use their expertise. Without the RDC, we cannot use their expertise. Yes or no? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Are you saying that you would create a subcommittee or?
Right. We have to have the RDC to have the subcommittee.
No, that could be a subcommittee of this
Of the
board.
board.
Right.
Okay.
To assist, you would assist the board as the property owner to develop a site plan or to tap into that expertise for any other resources.
Okay. So
Even
that,
I would say if that's constituted by this board, and that's a new subcommittee, that's going to be a public body that's going to have public meetings and will be beholden to the open meetings law, just like any other committee this board.
okay. I see opportunity there, and so that doesn't matter either way. So, that's why I was hesitant when I made the motion the other meeting, was the fact of being cautious with the time that we were allowed to be able to decide what's the difference, what's the value. As yet, if this is a premature motion, I'll take it off the table. But somewhere along the line, we're going to have to make this decision, or leave it alone till after the project's done. And honestly, I'm fine either way, as long as we don't have anything hampered. So if I can, I'll retract the motion, unless somebody else wants to remake it.
I would like to ask one other question. I think only one's what I've got. If we stop the redevelopment, we're no longer a part of it, who's going to be the overseer for, is the mayor going to be the person that is the engineer in this, making sure that the proper people come forward, that we get developers? You've got to have a leader in something here, in my opinion. And I'm just wondering, we give up the RDC, who's in charge, other than all of us? If you keep the RDC, who's in charge? You've still got to have a leader. And I'd like to know, where does that stand, with or without?
I think the answer is the same, because there is no redevelopment commission other than this board. And so whether you're acting as a redevelopment commission or acting as the property owner, this group is still the decision maker, and you still need that engineer. It seems to me that with an RDC, there's accountability, because if the RDC has monthly meetings, you better have something to talk about every month. If you're a property owner, maybe there's not that same sense of urgency, the same sense of public accountability that a regular meeting. Not to say that things couldn't be done and things would be done, but I think there needs to be consideration of starting on Monday when these developers come to town. Who's going to be in charge of the decision making? Who's going to keep things moving? I think it's an excellent point, and maybe it's not something to answer to that. I don't know the answer, but there are serious considerations about who's going to be working on this every month to make sure that we stay on that timeline.
Maybe this is an answer that the mayor can give us. What are your ideas on this, Mayor? Since it was suggested that we do away with it. I don't want to put you on the spot. We can wait till next time.
Your Honor.
Of course, there are different ways to look at it depending on where you are, but I like the idea of not having to wait to make public meetings with appropriate timelines and the notices, et cetera, that you have to do if we become a separate redevelopment commission ourselves. On the other hand, I also don't like having the responsibility necessarily to become the chief engineer of this particular project. I can build a bridge, but I'm not too sure about renovating the Spencer. So I think we have to consider what John said about we've got to figure out a way and quickly to move forward, whether we choose side A or side B. We got the timeline to go by, and it called for members for the completion of contract in February. Well, I don't have to remind you it's February the 4th, and there's only 28 days in February. So we've got a very limited amount of time to work at anything, really. My feeling is I wish the board would do it ourselves, but it's just a feeling and not maybe a reasoned approach to the work. I don't think any of us have any expertise in this particular field. So I think we would all be at a loss, and therefore we probably have to have someone to help us. I don't know that anybody on the original RDC would have any more experience than any of us would at the same time. So I don't really know which way to go.
Mayor, would it be a topic for the retreat, perhaps, that we could with developers on Monday? Is this something that we could talk about at the retreat? Because I agree with Mr. Brinkley, this has serious implications. And I don't know that we necessarily need to have a decision, redevelopment, no redevelopment today.
All right. Let me ask you a question about that, because I hear you saying it has serious implications. I feel like it does, and yet I can't name one.
Well, I think that the implications are, it's what you say, it's the number of meetings that we require. It will be a change. If the redevelopment commission continues to exist, we have to figure out something about the mayor's position on that body, because the redevelopment commission doesn't have a mayor. So the redevelopment commission going forward will be the 5 members of this board, without participation of Mr. Rowe unless he's added as a member somehow. That's a consideration. And I think just the considerations of how do we keep the thing moving if this board if there is no redevelopment commission. We're going to hire a third party to come in and do it. We're going to.
Well, we're going to be the ones doing it either way there. So we may need to hire someone, but But if we're the redevelopment commission, we're not going over with, we know it's the board of commissioners.
Correct.
So either way, we've already made that decision, and it's on us, and if we need to hire somebody, we need to hire somebody, but whatever we do with the redevelopment commission, none of that's gonna change, right? Except whether or not Mr. Rowe has a seat at the table.
In terms of the powers and duties going forward, that's right. You act as a redevelopment commissioner of the property. I think that's the distinction.
Logistically, if we had a redevelopment committee meeting / commissioners meeting every time we met, then it wouldn't add any more work, would it?
Things would move much faster.
Let me ask a question. If we never had a redevelopment commission, we purchased the Spencer property, and developers came in, or we found out about developers, we say, hey, this is what we've got available, let us show it to you, you tell us what you want to do. Now, that's exactly what I think I'm hearing here. If we don't have the redevelopment committee, it's just like any building that we've got available. We work at taking care of it. And to me, that's what we're saying here. Am I wrong? Would Todd Tucker get involved with this? Because he's all the time promoting buildings and what have you. Treat it as if we never had a redevelopment committee. We've got a big elephant out here and we're trying to feed him. So how do you go about doing it? Same way you would do, I think, if I understand this right, as if you had something out of PTI that's available. Is this different?
It's different from the standpoint that it's because of the mill credits.
Right.
And then the urgent need to move forward with redevelopment if we're going to develop that as it's been proposed by the
Right.
redevelopment commission. That's not what Todd Tucker does. Todd Tucker markets vacant buildings.
Well, let's hire him to do this.
So I think this is an entirely different field of expertise than what Todd does.
Have we already made progress toward looking into our marketing?
I'm sorry?
Have we not already made some progress in making contacts for a marketing venue?
At this point, I have communicated with the school development, and they have provided a proposal to come talk with us about the development of the Spencer's property. And once we move into that, the next phase, once we talk with them and decide that's what we want to do, if marketing is included in that, then we can proceed with the, for the marketing, if they're agreeable to that point. So at this point, what they have said they would do, come to the site visit with us, talk through some of the logistical things right now.
Any further discussion?
I really do hope that in these discussions, we're not undoing 20 months of work. And after our last meeting, I saw some people who suggested we make it into a new Reeves Community Center or something. It seemed like the work has been done to get us to this point. And requesting, if we're going to continue to market the property, and I hope very shortly there won't be a need to do that, at least all of it. But I hope we continue to promote it, that we are looking for maybe a boutique hotel, or however we're going to frame that part of it. Market rate apartments, however we frame that part of it, and retail space and other things. It's real important to me that we not lose the grip and start sliding.
make any, would it be a reasonable approach to wait till after Tuesday to sort of get a feel for what the developers are thinking before we make a decision? As far as I see, when, after the last meeting we had, we became the redevelopment commission. Whether you call it that or whether you don't call it that, it's up to us at this point, as I see it, to make sure this property is marketed correctly and put under contract with developers as soon as we can do it. Am I wrong in thinking this?
Exactly right.
That's everybody's consensus, that's what we've done. We sentenced ourselves to hard labor, so to speak. I don't think we should lose sight of what the 20 months of work that the REC has done. And I think that Mr. Armwood's motion contains enough language in it to where that information becomes our information to use. So I think we wouldn't lose sight of the 20 weeks work. Where we would fail, as I see it, is if the 5 of us leave it up to the 5 of us, or 6 of us, and we don't follow through and pursue this thing as we should. That would be the mistake that we would make. I see. So we have to pledge, decided to do away with it completely. We've got to pledge ourselves to be on ball in order to get this work done. It's critical for our city.
Let me ask you another question, Cal. Since we are the redevelopment commission, as it stands before this vote happens, could we all appear together Tuesday as the redevelopment commission? With the contractors?
No. Because that's a public body, so you'd have to publish notice of special meetings in 48 hours notice that the redevelopment commission was going to be there, and that would be a special meeting of the board of the redevelopment commission. So I guess, yes, doing it that way. It would become a public meeting.
All right, now as a board of commissioners, since we're dealing with the buying and selling of property, could we recess this meeting until Tuesday, all 5 of us come, and then go into closed session? Since we're dealing with selling property.
Can't go into closed session for selling property. So that would be an open meeting. Up to that point, you could, and it could be, if you're talking about the specifics of, it would be an opportunity.
You can't go into closed session to sell property.
Correct.
Okay.
To buy property, you cannot sell property.
But he asked the question, could we recess and continue this meeting with the developers altogether?
You could, that's not the way that it's been presented to developers, that it's going to be a public meeting. I don't think that they're anticipating.
We don't.
Don't want to scare everyone.
We don't want that.
One or two people.
We need a project manager that's going to answer to the board.
Okay.
It's complicated.
Good enough.
So are we going to decide on his vote? Maybe right now, so I think we can decide what we're going to do and see what takes place at the Tuesday meeting. Is that what is a smart move to do, or to finish this motion?
You rescinded your motion, right?
I did.
I'm just trying to figure out what the best course of action is, so I'll continue to ask questions.
I did that based on the uncertainty. I still have my opinion made up. project manager.
Okay. Now, what did you say, Jim?
I just feel like we need to find a project manager that will answer to the board.
The mayor's a good one.
I'm trying to keep it short today.
More salary.
I can work on that too.
Well, we're at the point where, has a motion been made, or?
It was a motion in a second.
You have a motion
A
and a
motion
second.
and a second,
And then it was rescinded.
and then you rescind. And now where are we?
You're talking.
Actually, having a discussion.
And I'll just say again, for clarification, that I rescinded it because the majority of the discussion seemed unsure. Because I've got my mind made up on what I think is best, but it sounds like that everybody needs further discussion to assure themselves of where we are and where we're headed.
Well, you said we need to understand, are we clear on where we stand, or do we need to keep hammering this thing out?
I don't think anything changes whether we maintain the RDC or not right now. That's why without them, I don't think it really matters if we dissolve. But we can postpone a decision on that and still continue the same either way. So I don't see any reason that we have to make this decision tonight.
And if we are a redevelopment commission, it might be a little bit easier in bookkeeping to keep up with how much we put into that. Because like if we're doing a project manager, we're gonna guess that we can still do a project manager as a redevelopment commission and finance that. It's all gonna be the same money, but we can know how much we spend.
Would that be a challenge either way?
The accounting is gonna be the same either way. Pam is gonna keep the books the same because it's general fund monies that you're talking about, so she's gonna account for that properly. Whether it be through the budget on the redevelopment commission or, well, I guess even if it were, it would be accounted for the same regardless, correct?
It can be, I mean, you can leave it down to, we can do that.
I want to recall that the developers indicated when they were here that they did not want a project manager to manage what they were doing. So, I'm pretty sure, anybody else remember that?
I remember hearing that they knew what they were doing, let them do it. That's what I remember, maybe not his exact words.
But there's gonna be a lot more to the project than just the building construction. You've got the streets, you've got the utilities, you've got, in effect, the whole site development plan that you need to really have. I don't know whether, I'm sure that some of our local staff could probably do that, but I don't know how much, snow removal that we've got out there to do. So, what do you think, Jeff? You got anybody that will take that on, or is that more than theirs?
I know we got lots of people.
It'd be a lot, wouldn't it?
Let's assume Tuesday that these people come in, and we'll hope and pray that they say, no, we want to go forward with this. They tell us what they want, and they tell us what they'd like for us to contribute. Who's going to make those decisions? If you do not have an RDC, then the decisions can be made pretty quickly. But remember, if you've got an RDC, then you've got to come together again to vote on this. Is that wrong or right? I don't want to stall anything because February, as you said, is here. If it's better for us to get these people moving, if they choose to stay with us, then is it smarter to not have the RDC?
2 points. I think that the contracts that we're negotiating with the developers are option agreements. Remember, the developers presented option agreements early on. We're still negotiating options. But to answer your question specifically, any contract would have to come back to a governing body, be it this board or this board acting as an RDC. So I don't think there's any time savings there necessarily. Everything will have to come back to a governing body for approval.
But they've got to have answers before.
They can't have it, I mean, it's,
by the end of February.
then it would be necessary to have a special meeting of this board or this board acting as RDC to approve something. Either way, we'll have a special meeting, it seems to me.
So we can accomplish the same thing by wearing one hat rather than wearing two. Is that what we started out saying at the beginning?
That was Commissioner Collins' point, that's correct.
Well, my thoughts are changing just by the discussion.
Well, let me get something straight. Last week, or last meeting we had, we did away with the redevelopment commission. We are the redevelopment commission. So when we start talking about redevelopment commission, it's like it was a different body. It's not a different body, it's us. It's the 5 commissioners and the mayor, or you say I'm wrong?
It's not the mayor.
Not the mayor,
Not-
no doubt.
Mayor's not on redevelopment commission.
If we kill it, is the mayor then a player?
If you kill it, yes, because then there's no redevelopment commission. And so the mayor, then this board is in charge of the property owner. And so the mayor has his limited voting role as a member of the property owner board.
Now, see, that really is the first thing that I can feel like is a big deal. You know, this, because the grant money is not going to be different that we know of. We're not looking to do other redevelopment areas within this one that we know of. And if we wanted to do this again in the future, we could. I didn't vote for it first time.
Yes, you could, but you could.
Well, then one of the things to consider is the mayor is active. If we don't have one at all. I didn't realize that difference.
Well, the way that it works is the redevelopment commission is the governing body. And the governing body is the 5 elected officials only. A redevelopment commission can vote to expand itself, that is to add Mr. Rowe, but I would say he would be a non-voting member because he's not part of the governing body as that term is defined in the statute. So if you're acting as a redevelopment commission, it would be a 5-member board, and perhaps Mr. Rowe is a non-voting member who can come to meetings to participate, versus the Board of Commissioners acting as the Board of Commissioners with the mayor presiding and acting like the mayor, because you carry on as the way we want today.
Okay, so if we decided right now, with all of this discussion, for his motion, could it come back, does it have to be repeated, and us vote or whatever?
With the prior motion second.
You know the doors.
motion that we dissolve the RDC.
Can I make one comment before you do that?
We need a second first.
Motion to second, further discussion.
It's nothing major, it's just a technicality I wanted to ask. Should it be rescinding the ordinance 2014-19 that created the redevelopment commission? If you're gonna do that, instead of just saying, yeah, so to have that on the record.
And ordinance number again.
2014-09.
Add that to the motion.
So the question is whether we rescind the motion we made for
No, sir. He's Mr. Goodall is referencing the original motion that created the whole thing. So that was a 2014 ordinance that was adopted by this board. And I think the intent here is to abolish or rescind that ordinance, going back to the beginning. And so as a consequence of that, we would file a certificate of dissolution with North Carolina Secretary of State, do away with the redevelopment commission and all of the ordinance that we created. I think it's just a point of clarification to clarify Commissioner Armister's motion.
So you made another motion. He seconded.
motion and second and discussion. Need more discussion, more time with that? You ready to vote? Okay. This motion, by Mr. Armbruster is that the redevelopment commission be absolved. That's the right word?
Yes, resolved in the ordinance 2014-09-0.
I'd like to make some other comments. In all this, it's the redevelopment commission has gotten no credit for all the work that they've done. And under other business last time, as I said, I thought it was a mistake to disband the redevelopment commission. And I still think it was a mistake, and I think it would be a mistake for this board now not to serve as a redevelopment commission. But I just want to make it very clear that something that was said last time was not correct. Under other business at the January 21st, 2016 meeting, Mayor Rowe inquired about the board's original intentions regarding the redevelopment commission in 2014. Commissioner Armbruster answered that the original intent was to purchase and develop Spencer's property. Unfortunately, that answer was absolutely not correct. At the April 3rd, 2014 Board of Commissioners meeting, the intent to create a redevelopment commission was on the agenda. It was resolution number 2014-048. There was a lot of information presented and a lot of questions asked. Eminent domain, blighted properties, and the fact that the planning board had the authority to set the redevelopment area were thoroughly discussed. During the discussion of this resolution, Commissioner Armbruster was quoted in the minutes of that meeting. I would like to reemphasize the fact of clarifying in the wording specifically for the focus to be only commercial properties. Directing them to focus only commercial, I think, is critical. Later in the discussion, Mayor Cochran said it appears from what I've heard that Commissioner Goakley would like to be considered in this intent to create a redevelopment commission that the primary focus being non-residential areas, and Commissioner Armbruster wanted to add focus on blighted commercial property. The vote was 3-2 in favor of this resolution. Commissioners Yockley, Brown, and Armbruster voted aye in favor of the resolution. Commissioner Cawley and Brinkley voted nay. Also, at the April 3rd, 2014 meeting, ordinance number 2014-019, which Andy just referenced, actually creating the redevelopment commission, was considered. The motion to approve this ordinance creating the redevelopment commission was made by Commissioner Armbruster and was seconded by Commissioner Brown. The motion passed with a 4-1 vote, with Commissioners Yockley, Brown, Armbruster, and Brinkley voting aye, Commissioner Cawley voting nay. Ordinance number 2014-019 did include appointments to the board, and Commissioner Armbruster and Yockley were appointed to serve on the board, and Commissioner Armbruster later declined. But I just wanted to emphasize that at this April 3rd, 2014 meeting, when the redevelopment commission was established, there was no mention made of the Spencer's property whatsoever in any of the discussions about the resolution or the ordinance. In fact, the absolute auction of the Spencer's property did not take place until May the 15th, 2014. The city didn't take ownership of the property until the deed was recorded on June 26, 2014. So if it's the wish of the board to rescind this ordinance, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew the circumstances that it was originally passed.
Further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I could bring one point to the board, and that is before you consider abolishing the RDC that's handled by you, your group, your organization, you need to make sure that the tax credits will be achievable without the RDC. Property has to be declared blighted, which it was by the City Council in April of 2014 to accommodate the need to meet a tax credit. Just, I'd like for y'all to discuss that. Be aware.
In our discussions that we've had, it's my understanding that it does not affect the tax credits in any manner or form. Correct?
Jim, I have to ask Mr. Plum, I don't know what he's referring to specifically.
Just, I want to make sure the board's informed of what's required to achieve a tax credit in the rehab of the Spencer's building. And if by dissolving the redevelopment committee that the board now serves as, I just want to make sure that in the removal of all prior ordinances that brought that to being, that the tax credit can still be acquired and achieved by dissolving all of that as if it had never happened. I do know that in order to get tax credits, a textile mill tax credit, the property does have to be declared blighted by the city governing board, which it was before our committee was actually, before the RDC committee was actually seated. So I just want to make sure, not to throw any curveball into this thing, I just want to make sure that the tax credit, which is most important, will still be able to be achieved by the dissolvement of this group.
Chip, are you saying that we deemed that property blighted before we bought it?
The city board declared the Spencer's property blighted under an ordinance. I don't know the name of the ordinance or the number, but it was done in March or April of 2014. The RDC was appointed by the commissioners in May of 2014, if my memory serves me correct.
I think that property was declared in 2015. If you go back and look at the thing that was done by Greensboro.
No,
If I'm not mistaken.
it was declared blighted by an ordinance of the commissioners in March or April of 2014.
Which problem?
Well, I think that there was, my memory serves, there was a general finding of blight in the city, which was a precursor to the formation of a redevelopment commission.
That could be.
Okay, but I don't think it specifically identified the Spencer's property. And then the Spencer's property has been accepted by the historic preservation people as a historic, historic structure. And so we've been accepted in the mill credit program the same way that the property across the street that Gene Reese has. I think we're in the same program. And been accepted better.
That paperwork was filed together. They didn't qualify for that tax credit.
Right.
It had nothing to do with like it had to do with the National Register.
Right.
I just want to make sure that you're informed and to make a proper decision to make sure that the tax credits will still be achievable by whomever in the future. Because if those are not able to be utilized, a developer has no incentive to move forward.
Well, obviously, nobody wants to take the responsibility to give a solid answer, so, it's going to be what? I told you so. Well, fine. My motion stands.
So we've had a motion, a second, and considerable discussion. I suppose we should vote on the motion as it stands. That is to rescind the RDC. So, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. That passes.
Very quickly, because time is running out, I just want to thank everyone for being here. We have a lot of people that we've recognized. Thank you to our city cleanup committee that's sitting over here. We love you guys. Thank you for riding down our roads and cleaning up the streets. I'm sure we are glad of that, and that you've been able to hit the roads that were not hit last year, and the lady that stood up and praised you. I appreciate that. And I hope that my words will not be in vain that I said earlier. I hope. I am not a Facebook person. I detest it. It's causing a lot of divorces, friendships, and it is destroying our area. And I hope that everybody will go out of here and pass the word around. Facebook is not what it's cracked up to be. It doesn't make friends. It makes enemies, and walls are there, and we cannot knock them down. And you can smile if you want to and pretend like this is unimportant, but this is your life and this is your town.
When this board makes a decision, whether I'm for or against it, I'm going to shoulder the responsibility. And I want to support decisions that I don't agree with 100%. Period. I think that's what the citizens expect of me. And I want to fulfill every wish and want that our citizens want that will benefit this whole city. And the decisions we make now are only to go forward with our unified thought. But yes, we're going to make Spencer successful. Yes, it will improve our downtown environment, and it will help improve the environment socially and economically throughout our city. Now that's a common thread that we all have. I spank my kids for a lot less of behavior than I've seen from adults. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like, first of all, to congratulate Roscoe Hudson and thank him for all that he does in making downtown Mount Airy a better place to be. But I also want to publicly congratulate and thank Alton Gaither, Chip William, Jared Simmons, Marie Wood, and Tom Webb for having served and spent hundreds of hours working on the redevelopment commission. They were wanting to serve in unpaid positions and were given two North Carolina laws under which they had to operate. Then they were vilified and verbally abused for doing exactly what they were appointed to do. I know how hard all of these 5 people work to try to make things better for everyone. So to all 5 of these individuals, you have my utmost respect, gratitude, and appreciation for all that you did. I would like to work with other board members and the mayor and Mutual Corporation to try to make Mount Airy an even better place to live and work. Time is of the essence on the Spencer's property. And I am going to agree somewhat with Shirley too, it's just different words. Unfortunately, it is apparent to me and many others that instead of trying to work together to make Mount Airy better, pettiness and vindictiveness and personal attacks on me seem to be the norm for some. And I do want to thank Shirley for her actions tonight in the Piedmont Triad Regional Council. I think it was not for me, as I said before, but I think it was important for the city of Mount Airy for me to continue serving on that, both of those 2 boards. And to the mayor and the board, it is time to get over what happened in the election. It is never appropriate to let personal vendettas, permeated by desires for obvious and childish political payback and retribution, get in the way of working together in the best interest of the citizens of Mount Airy. What's done is done. What was done the last 2 or 3 months has been over and done with, and we can't do anything else about it. But now it's time to move on and all work together. Thank you.
Well, I brought my fire department report back today because I want to thank Zane and the fire department, the Mount Airy Fire Department, for the wonderful work they do. During the snowstorm, I went online and compared fire departments in their annual report to Mount Airy's. They don't touch it. None of them do. Thank you, Zane.
I will try to control myself here, but I will say there are people who think that the redevelopment of the Spencer's property is the only thing that Mount Airy has to deal with. And those people are misinformed, mistaken, however you want to say it. Thank you for removing the snow as well as you did. And you never get the same field to play on twice. And some of us understand that. And what we have to deal with here today, we bought a piece of property today. We bought a set of trash cans and recycling receptacles. We've got a lot of things in front of us. And we also reappointed Commissioner Yoakley. I did that because I thought it was the redemptive thing to do. This board is broken. And if you don't understand that, then you're not around very much. But we have a broken board of commissioners right now. And it's getting a lot of fuel from outside the room. And I really hate that that's the reality, but that's just how I see it. And if you need some examples, here's one. The redevelopment commission also included Commissioner Armbruster, who spent hundreds of hours himself being prepared for those meetings. And the commissioner sitting next to him failed to recognize those hours. And that worked. We can keep playing this game, but I don't do games. God help us.
don't see you in this room that often, doesn't mean that you're not noticed and you're not recognized. So thank you for the work that you do. And I know many times throughout budget, there's never enough money to get everything everybody needs, but we will continue to work on equipment, pay, and different things that are needed. And also, the ladies in finance are here. Thank you all for being here and having an interest. And Will, I'm going to put you on the point, if you will, to stand up and introduce yourself.
Sure.
As part of our planning department, this is one of the new members of Benchmark. So just tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been with Benchmark about a month now. Before that, I came from Cumberland County. So I was a transportation planner and a comprehensive planner. I just tell you guys, I just completed your comprehensive plan. It's a pretty nice one. So, good job to Benchmark. I'm originally from Yadkinville, so I'm not from too far away. So it's nice to be back. Recently in the area. Stay here a long time.
Thank you. One other announcement that I have is Andy's wife is only a couple of weeks away from.
Could be a couple of days.
It could be a couple of days. They're expecting the first child, and I'm getting daily updates from Andy, and I think she started a little pain along the line, so it may be sooner than later, and we certainly want to continue to congratulate him. And again, I'm very grateful for every staff member, every team member that comes to work every day in this office, and very positive attitude and very professional. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, how does the mayor wrap up a meeting like this? What? Good way to start it, for sure. Well, what do you say when you've inherited, so to speak, a broken board? I guess you could define it in several different ways. It's okay if we disagree with particular votes, and they might be 3-2 or 4-1 or whatever. It's as long as the consensus of the group is 100% backed by the entire group once that vote is taken. We can't deal with the problems that the city has, or the opportunities, I would better say, that we have, unless we as a group of commissioners and the mayor, look at these things as a whole. And once we've decided on a course of action, that we all 100% support that, and don't go out carving at one another or about the things that have happened or didn't happen or however we feel about it, we should support whatever the board decides 100%. Now, having said that, how does one heal a broken board? It's going to take a lot of work. There are differences of opinion. There are differences of personality. We are 6 different people. We all think about things in different ways. I'm glad it's that way because you get a diversity that you wouldn't have otherwise. So it's not all bad, but we do need to try to work towards the healing that needs to be applied through whatever means we would choose to apply. We need to set a course of action that pulls us together, common objectives that we can all agree with, and pursue those objectives with our entire being and whole hearts. That being said, I wish we would all consider our respective positions and agree that we can disagree, but not be disagreeable. So, I would gladly take this opportunity to adjourn this meeting.